What if I told you that every time you jump into a game, you're participating in a ritual thousands of years old? Not some weird cult kind of ritual thing, obviously. No, I'm talking about a real what it is to be human ritual. The idea of leaving the familiar, stepping into the unknown, facing challenge, and returning changed. That idea has appeared again and again throughout human history, because it reflects something deep within us. Before we had games, we had myths, stories of heroes leaving safety behind, entering dangerous worlds, confronting monsters and coming back transformed. We continue to evolve, but the pattern always remains strangely familiar. And that raises a rather odd question about gaming. Why do we spend all day dealing with emails, deadlines, bills, and the general admin swamp of modern life, only for millions of us to come home and voluntarily deal with more problems? Gaming is a bit of a peculiar hobby when viewed from the outside. We enter worlds designed to challenge us, we learn complicated systems, we fail, we experiment, and we try again, willingly spending hours overcoming obstacles that, in the grand scheme of, don't really need overcoming. Which leaves further questions. Why do we seek challenge? Why do we want to feel immersed somewhere else? Why do we want to disappear into imaginary worlds and willingly struggle inside of them? Games seem to satisfy something than just entertainment. And perhaps the easiest way to understand that is, okay, bear with me here, by asking why a dragon feels more meaningful than a tax return. Oh, and before somebody points out that dragons aren't real, I am aware. That's actually the interesting part of my point. Oh, and HMRC can never be defeated by a flaming sword. Objectively speaking, the tax return has a far greater impact on your life. The tax return affects your finances and determines whether HMRC is happy with you. The dragon, meanwhile, is a fictional creature living inside a computer. And yet, nobody imagines the great hero's journey as someone sitting at a desk organising receipts. Nobody tells stories about the brave accountant who stared down a complicated spreadsheet and emerged victorious. We are drawn to stories about people entering the unknown, you see. We're not motivated purely by practicality. Deeper down, we're all drawn towards meaning. This is something the Swiss psychologist Carl Jung spent much of his life exploring. Jung studied the stories, myths, and symbols that appeared across different cultures and noticed something very interesting about us lot. Civilizations separated by oceans and centuries continue creating similar ideas. The hero leaving home, the mysterious guide, the journey into the unknown, and the subsequent transformation through struggle. Jung believed these patterns were not simply storytelling shortcuts. They reflected something deeper within the human mind, which he called archetypes. One of the most interesting of these was the shadow. The shadow represents the part of ourselves that we tend to ignore or hide away, the fears we don't want to admit to ourselves, the weaknesses we don't want to acknowledge, and the impulses we would rather pretend aren't there inside of us. And Jung's idea was that growth doesn't come from destroying the shadow. It comes from confronting it. The monster in the story is often a representation of the monster within ourselves. The dragon isn't just something the hero defeats, it represents something the hero has to face. This is why these ancient stories continue to resonate. They're not really about swords, monsters, or magical kingdoms. They're about transformation. Joseph Campbell later explored a similar idea through what became known as the hero's journey. He noticed that across countless myths, again, the same pattern appearing. Someone leaving the ordinary, entering the unfamiliar, facing trials and overcoming. Now, obviously, there's a bit of a difference between a warrior entering a dangerous wilderness and someone sitting on a sofa eating a big bag of crisps while smashing a controller and repeating the same boss fight. Although, depending on the boss, the emotional journey can feel remarkably similar. And this is where games become fascinating, because they've become a place where we can explore these ancient ideas. Okay, let me give you some examples here. Take Skyrim. The reason people still talk about Skyrim isn't simply because it has dragons. It's because it creates the feeling of possibility. You step into a world where nobody knows your past, your mistakes, nobody has already decided who you are. You are simply someone at the beginning of a journey. Real life is surprisingly bad at offering that kind of reinvention. Most people cannot wake up on Monday morning and announce, "Today I shall abandon my responsibilities and become a mysterious warrior with a bit of a dodgy relationship with the local guild." Never mind that bit. No, because mainly, your council tax payment is still due. But games allow us to explore those possibilities. They allow us to ask a question that's surprisingly difficult to answer when caught up in everyday life. What could I become? Path of Exile 2 approaches that same idea from another direction. A game that gives you complexity, systems, choices, and possibilities that seem overwhelming. And that experience is strangely familiar to being human. We spend much of life trying to understand systems we didn't create and consequences we can't always predict. The satisfaction comes when confusion becomes understanding, when something that once seemed impossible suddenly makes sense. That reward is not just power, it's the feeling that you understand the world you're standing in. Competence. Elden Ring takes another approach entirely. It asks, what happens when failure itself becomes part of the process? I'm sure nobody wakes up hoping to spend their evening being repeatedly introduced to the business end of a sword that's somehow larger than the thing holding it. The reward isn't simply defeating the boss, it's becoming the kind of player who can. The enemy stays exactly the same, but you change, you overcome. And Baldur's Gate 3 explores perhaps the most human challenge of all. Choice. Because discovering who you are is easy when there are no consequences. The interesting part is finding out who you become when your decisions actually matter, when power is available, and when temptation exists, when doing the right thing is inconvenient. Not just escaping reality, but also allowing us to experience parts of reality that modern life often hides away. Side note, GTA 6 is looking set to be the most rigorous experiment designed to discover how long it takes sane people to consider, I wonder what would happen if I drive like a madman, and comment section can complete the spit. Give me your best. And so, challenge, uncertainty, discovery, transformation. The story remains the same. We leave behind what we know. We encounter something greater than ourselves. We confront what we fear to overcome and return transformed, which perhaps explains why a dragon feels more meaningful than a tax return. But the dragon, all that dragon is asking is, what are you capable of? And for thousands of years, humans have been far more interested in answering that question.